Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Legends of Sport podcast. I am your host, Andy Bernstein. However, in a change to our usual format, I am going to take the guest seat for this episode. I will be interviewed by my good friend and collaborator, Iain Thackrah. Iain is a creative mentor to creative entrepreneurs, founder of his own company, and my partner in crime in the latest development for my photography company, Bernstein Associates. Iain and I are very excited to be developing a unique online workshop together called Beyond the Lens. It will be a live interactive workshop over 12 weeks that will officially launch in June of 2023. This will be a workshop that discusses my 4 decades of experience with all aspects of running a successful business, mindset, and longevity, and many stories and anecdotes from working with so many icons in the worlds of sports and business. We will discuss how to keep your creative juices flowing and also how to pivot or transition to a new career or passion. I'm thrilled to be sharing my experiences with anyone and everyone who signs up for our workshop and with all of you today on this special podcast episode. Stay tuned for the outro to this conversation about how to sign up and take advantage of our early bird special during the holidays. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Iain, and as always, I'll see you on the backside.
Welcome to the Legends of Sport podcast. I'm not Andy Bernstein. In a change to the regular structure, we're going to flip the tables. And this week, Andy is going to be the guest on his own podcast. So we can dig deep into Andy's latest project, which is called Beyond the Lens. Hi, Andy. Welcome to your show.
Iain, how are you, my friend? You hijacked my show, man.
Yeah,
Come
yeah,
on.
yeah.
No, I'm
I'm
kidding.
good, thanks. I'm good, thanks. Thank you for letting me dial in all the way
Yeah, of course.
from the UK.
Yep,
So let's just let's get straight into it, Andy.
sure.
What are you up to?
Well, as you know, I've been kind of weaning myself off the court. I've just started my 42nd NBA season, and my photography company, super busy. Thank goodness, knock on wood. We're post-pandemic, and all our events are back. Our teams are playing, and we're just a busy group. However, during the pandemic, a little bit pre-pandemic, but definitely now post-pandemic, I have made the conscious decision to sort of ease myself off the field to play, and sort of go from being behind the camera to in front of the camera. I've been doing the podcast, the Legends of Sport podcast now for this is our season 6 right now, and we've done about 100, close to 180 episodes. And on top of all that, you and I are partnering on a really, really fun venture called Beyond the Lens. And super happy to talk to you about that today, man, because I think we're bringing something really special to the photography community, the sports community, people who want to find out about, life's journeys and paths and entrepreneurship and everything else. So, I'm really happy that you and I found each other to try to get that across.
Yeah, thank you. Do you want to give us just a quick 3-line, 1-minute introduction as to what the workshop actually is?
Well, the workshop is, we all have heard the phrase masterclass, and I love master classes. All the best of the best are doing master classes across the board in arts and business and sports and industry. However, as we know, masterclass is a recorded offering. You pay for a a grouping of lessons, or people to come across your screen and teach you things, but there's no interaction, right? There's no one-on-one, there's no live component. So you and I have come up with the great idea of how about just take a masterclass to another level and have it be a live interaction between myself, who's trying to get some, important things across, and the public who might want to learn some things. Um, So, we started on this journey, what, about over a year ago, and you were introduced to me by one of my great mentors, my dearest friend, Errol Gerson, who close to, well, let's see, 45 years ago was my only business class teacher at Art Center College of Design. And Errol made such an impact on me, not only in the business sense, but as a person and as a friend, and of course, as a mentor, as my photography career took off, but now also in the transition that I'm making off the court, And I think we have something really exciting, man. I think we have a program that will interest people on many levels. You don't have to be a photographer. You can be. You don't have to love sports. You can love sports. But this is not a how to become a sports photographer like me class. So if that's what people are looking for, there's lots of places you can go, lots of really reputable how to, workshops, and that's not what this is. I will be talking about um, many examples from my long career working with people, um, dealing with all kinds of personalities, uh, how my career myself got motivated and grew over the years. But I am not going to be talking about f-stops and shutter speeds and things like that. That's not what this is about.
Yeah. And there's one thing that's like playing in the back of my mind as you're talking about this. Firstly, I love the phrase masterclass, but kind of taking it to another level. I think that's a really good way of kind of summing up the structure of it and why it's going to be why it's going to be so interesting. That live element really plays a key role. But the kind of the big question that's kind of burning in the back of my mind right now is, like, you're a busy guy. Like, you have got a lot of, we say in Britain, you've got a lot of fingers and a lot of pies. Is how we say it here. You've got your sports photography, you've got your commercial photography, you've got this podcast on the go. You've got, I'm sure you've spoken to me about a book project in the pipeline, and there's all these things going on, all these balls in the air. So why this? And I would also say follow that on with kind of why now?
Well, great questions, Ian. First of all, I've been so lucky and grateful to have had a long and full career as a sports photographer primarily, but as a business person. And I want to, just like when I teach, I'm trying to give back. I'm trying to get across to the next generation, or even people that are in my space, kind of around my age, who've had long careers in some industry, but maybe want to pivot to something else, trying to reinvent themselves, so to speak, whatever. So I feel kind of, I don't want to say an obligation, but I feel like it's my sort of role and to be of service in that sense. But I need to point out, we've talked about this, I've talked about it many times, but my business card says photographer, right? Owner of a photography business. But I don't think I spend 10% of my work life with my eye behind a viewfinder, or in a camera doing actual photography. So what am I doing the other 90% of the time? I'm doing everything that it takes to keep my business running, to keeping the engine going. Everything from dealing with clients, trying to get new business, trying to just make sure that things are running from, internal standpoint, from my staff and the assignments and everything we're doing. I'm continually trying to stay current with technology, which is really, really challenging. At my age, to be learning a whole digital format, everything having to do with that in the early 2000s, to now it's gone up to whole other levels of that. I was brought up in the analog era of film and manual cameras and all that stuff. But that's my background, and I can use that background to kind of get a lot of knowledge out there. And I feel like if I didn't do it now, when would I do it? Quite honestly, I feel like, I got a lot of gas left in the tank. I'm still very challenged and interested in my craft, which is photography. And before I get too far away from the court, so to speak, and into these other ventures that I'm doing, I feel like I have a lot to share. So now's the time, man. And that's why you and I have been working really diligently. I think we've been on a Zoom call almost every week for the last year developing this incredible workshop. So, you know, we're at the point now where we're assembling all the pieces. You and I are talking about it today so that we can get the word out to the public.
Yeah, I think there's two really, really great ideas that come from that. And this is something that both of these things are things that come through when I'm coaching the entrepreneurs and the creatives that I work with.
Mm-hmm.
There's never a good time to take on something like this, that you'll never have enough time. You'll never be free enough. The conditions will never be right. So if you're constantly waiting for that right time, well, now is as good a time as any. So you might as well do it now if it's important to you.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I think one thing the pandemic taught us, Ian, is that we don't have really any control over outside forces, right? Yeah, I'll give you an example. On March 10th, 2020, my photography company was as busy as it ever had been. We had a basketball game that night in what was then still Staples Center. Across the street, there was a concert. I had two other assignments going on that day for my photographers. We had a full slate of games coming up and events on our campus at LA Live, going well into the summer. The NBA and NHL playoffs were coming up, and things were great. And then March 11th, literally 24 hours later, boom, everything shut down. 100% of my work went away. 100%. So that was pretty shocking. I don't think any of us were prepared for that extreme of the result of what was going on at the beginnings of the pandemic in the U.S. And I personally didn't pick up a camera for 5.5 months until I went to the NBA bubble in August. And my photography company was just, put on hold, honestly. So what do you do in that case? Do you just, circle the wagons and cry over your milk, or you just step up and you figure out what to do? And what we did was myself, my office manager, and our social media guy, Michael, we just decided, what, we're going to hunker down on Legends of Sport, which is the content platform that we have started and was starting to get a lot of traction, with the podcast and social media, and just make that our mission, and it was a little bit, quite frankly, of a blessing, because I didn't have all the photography business and sort of pressures and stresses of that kind of sucking the energy out of what we were trying to do at Legends of Sport. So we, even though we weren't able to do live events, which we had been planning to do in the third and fourth quarter of 2020, we were able to then plan for post-pandemic, which is now where we're at right now. So the germ of this idea, this beyond the lens idea, was starting to happen. I think you and I met like during that summer, I believe, right? And I don't know if that would have really taken hold as a commitment from me if I was as busy as I normally am, with the photography stuff. So look, again, we don't have control of what is thrown our way, but we do have control of how we deal with it, and how we can, make lemonade out of lemons, as they say. And I'm really happy about that, because now, photography is back. I've been able to step out as much as I possibly can at this point, and I kind of have the best of both worlds happening right now.
Yeah, just want to circle back to something you've kind of touched on there is your response to the pandemic and the business situation that you're in,
Mm-hmm.
your 40 plus year career
Mm-hmm.
that kind of led up to that, and also obviously touching back to Errol, my dear friend and business partner as well,
Yeah.
and the education that he gave you. One of the things that we often discuss is that for a lot of craft people, for a lot of creative people, their craft skills cover 90% of the work that they do, and their business skills cover kind of 10% of what they do. And you've kind of alluded there to a completely different relationship between those percentages. It's more 90% business and 10% creative.
Yes.
Just wondering what impact that kind of early education at Art Center had, where you were able to understand the business behind your creative skills, rather than just spend time honing your creative skills. And
yeah, you take me back to, I started Art Center in 1978 and I was 19. I was the youngest one in my class. Most of the people that I knew at Art Center had already either gotten a degree in something else or had completely pivoted, done a 180 from like a career. Like I had a couple of pre-med students that had just quit medical school to go to Art Center. A couple of Vietnam veterans were in my class. I had two moms, I believe, in my class. And here I am, I'm 19. I already done 2.5 years of college. I went to college early back east, and but I'm the young punk there in the class trying to figure it all out. And what's interesting, Ian, is that I was told from day one when I got to Art Center that I was really in the wrong place, that I wanted to be a photojournalist. I hadn't really honed it down to sports at that point, but I knew I wanted to be a photojournalist, and that Art Center didn't support that. That wasn't there in their mission statement. They wanted to make successful studio photographers, fashion photographers, car photographers, beauty photographers, whatever. Photojournalism was like way down as the poor stepchild of anything that they were teaching. But yeah, I'm a Brooklyn guy, and I didn't really, listen to all that noise. It just kind of fueled me even more, quite honestly, because you tell me I can't do something where I come from, that's just fuel for the fire to make me do it even more. So Art Center was good in the classroom sense. I got a lot of training technically, which I never would have gotten anywhere else. I understood everything I needed to know about light and exposure and composition, and by doing assignments that are way out of my comfort zone, but I understood then, and even looking back now, how important that was. However, where I really progressed by leaps and bounds was through the relationships that I made at Art Center, specifically with Errol, being my only business class teacher, and then by being introduced to various Sports Illustrated photographers by one of my favorite teachers, favorite people in the world, Bill Robbins, who ran a studio in Hollywood, a very successful studio. And then he also was teaching 1 or 2 classes a week. And I ended up working in Bill's studio. So I was getting a lot of on the job sort of training there and learning how to run a studio, everything from dealing with clients and supplies and dealing with vendors, assistants, things like that, scheduling shoots, to what I needed to know just on a daily basis of growing a career. And Bill was very, very forthcoming in helping me along as my career started. And the experience working for Sports Illustrated was really the most valuable piece of the puzzle for me, because I was taken to every conceivable kind of sporting event as an assistant and really saw firsthand how these photographers deal with a lot of different elements, preparation mostly, how they can solve a problem. We would a lot of times put in very difficult situations, weather, um, travel things. I learned how to light arenas for hockey and basketball with big strobes, and that became my sort of launching point for my career because it was a very specialized technique. And the long answer to your question is that I'm really, really happy I went to Art Center. Um, although it wasn't, I don't think it was reciprocated or appreciated on the other side that I ended up going there. But I have to owe a lot of my Hall of Fame career to the knowledge and the experience I got there, and the blood, sweat, and tears it took to get that degree, which was really important to me. That I did get my BFA degree in 1981, and I'll always be grateful to some really, really impactful people who helped me at Art Center.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Thanks. Just kind of pulling ourselves back to present day and to the workshop itself. Could you just give me a quick kind of highlight about what's on the inside of the workshop?
Well, we have narrowed down the workshop to, I think, 11 or 12 themes, right? And I want to go back to a question you asked earlier, like, why am I doing this? One of the reasons I forgot to mention, but really important reason, is that people have been asking for this. People have been reaching out to me on DM or through our social media, or when I do speaking at schools, or I've been, do teaching, like, why don't you do a workshop? Why don't you do a masterclass? And, it was never the right moment or the right fit or the right person to partner with until I met you. And then, you and Errol, being like the dream team here of making this thing happen. So I didn't want to short shrift that, because that was really important. That sometimes opportunities look great on the surface, but then when you scratch the surface, there's really not a lot under there, right? But your reputation, of course, my history and Errol's reputation is, it just, all those pieces came together to make it the right fit for me, right? So when we started narrowing down what this was going to look like, how this was going to be different than something other people are doing out there in the world, I think we hit upon, business. We hit upon my history, as a photographer, but also as a business person, as an entrepreneur, somebody who is sort of a survivor of a lot of arrows being thrown at me. And many of the tenets of what we're going to be talking about in the workshop really come from the foundation that I learned from Kobe, from the Mamba mentality. Kobe had 4 pillars of the Mamba mentality, which we're going to draw on throughout the workshop. And, the Mamba mentality, people think about Kobe, Mamba mentality, this is how he played on the court. No, that's part of it. But when we did our book together, The Mamba Mentality, he subtitled the book How I Play, right? And I've talked about this before, but I just love talking about the fact that, when I saw the title on the mocked up cover, I texted him. I said, you've been retired now for 2 years. We're about to release a book that you're saying on the cover, how I play. You don't play anymore. and he said, don't you get it? Exactly. How I play, how I lead my life, how I am going to do the rest of the things I want to do. And that just kind of hit me right between the eyes, like, oh, of course, how I play, how I live. So, the 4 pillars of the Mamba mentality are kind of the bedrock cornerstones of what we're trying to do in the workshop. So the first pillar of the Mamba mentality, of course, is obsession. You absolutely have to be obsessed with what you do, with what your craft is. Kobe had a great saying that if you're not as obsessed with what you do as with what I do, we don't speak the same language. And of course, he and I did speak the same language, because I was as crazy obsessed with what I do as a photographer as what he did as a professional athlete. So we bonded very early over that. The second pillar of the Mamba mentality is curiosity, is constantly being curious about your craft, about your profession, which means learning everything you need that is out there, that you need to learn, even stuff you don't even think you need to learn, read things, but also seek out people who can help you along the way. This is really important for young people who might feel intimidated, who might feel, um, embarrassed, shy, whatever. You know what? You got to go for it. If there's somebody in your craft, in your profession, your industry that you admire, reach out to them, figure out how to get to them. We have so many vehicles now, ways to reach people that we didn't have back in when I was starting out. Social media, LinkedIn, all kinds of stuff that you can actually reach people, that back in the day, when I needed to reach out to Neil Leifer, I had to write him a letter, and figure out his address, which I don't even know how I did that, and hope that he A, got the letter, and B, responded to it, which he did. So, there's another great Kobe story about curiosity that Kobe had this famous way about him that he was just curious about anyone who had achieved greatness in their profession or their craft or their industry, like he had achieved in his, and what's the secret sauce, what made them tick. And he would just call people up randomly. He'd get their numbers. He'd call up President Obama. He'd call up Bob Iger at Disney. And a huge fan of John Williams, right? The composer, multi-Academy Award winning composer. So he figures out how to get John Williams' number, literally calls John Williams on his cell phone, and is picking his brain for an hour and a half, right? And what happens next? Two of them collaborate, partner on Dear Basketball. He's the first professional athlete to ever win an Oscar, right? That's because he was curious and he picked the brain of somebody he really admired. The third pillar of the Mamba mentality is relentlessness, just relentless pursuit of getting past what you have been told, what you might feel inside yourself is your quote unquote potential. Kobe hated the word potential because potential it puts like a limit on how far you can go in your own self. Here's a guy who was always working on his game from being a little kid to a phenom in high school, a young player in the NBA, even still working on his game. I would see him out there hours and hours before anyone would ever show up at practice. And he's out there working on defense, working on jumpers, working on turnarounds, working on baseline moves, all kinds of stuff. So just be relentless about your pursuit of greatness and go from being good to great. I talk about this all the time, that there's about 400 players in the NBA. You have to be really, really good to get into the NBA. It's less than 1% of really great college players, end up in the NBA. But how do that small amount of players who reach that iconic level, like what's that extra gear that they have that goes from good to great? So use the resources you have. The first two tenets of obsession and curiosity, as you relentlessly push yourself beyond whatever limits or potential you feel like you've been told or that you feel inside yourself. The fourth pillar of the Mamba mentality is strength, is the ability to continually overcome adversity, limitations. In Kobe's case, in many athletes' cases, really almost career-ending injury. Here's a guy 16 years into obviously a Hall of Fame career, had already won 5 championships, made enough money, for the rest of his life and his family's life, obviously. He didn't need to have to come back from a horrific injury that he had with the Achilles tear. But he always said that an injury was not going to define how he went out, and he was going to retire on his own volition and his own rules. And he worked his butt off to get back on the court. And what happened? He comes back on the court.
scores 60 points in his final game, drops the mic, Mamba out, and that he went out on his own terms. So strength is definitely inner strength, mental strength, powering through things, but also using resources that you have. Kobe had great trainers, great physiologists, doctors, people around you that can get you back on your feet, no matter how you see that. It could be financial issues that you had, could be addiction and recovery issues that you had. It could be, players go from team to team, and then all of a sudden, wow, they've really caught on with that team. Well, that takes a lot of inner strength to have overcome so much adversity that you just keep pushing yourself further. So with those 4 pillars in mind of the Mamba mentality, we developed this sort of 12-part workshop, which are offshoots or sort of, I guess, branches of those 4 pillars. And, I can just talk about those now. We're going to be talking about longevity, why somebody like me why have I had such a long and successful career? What are the elements that have gone into that? We talk about integrity, professional integrity, personal integrity, that being really kind of the benchmark, the kind of the linchpin, I guess, of a long career, is having integrity that, clients want to keep coming back because you have this professionalism to you, that you deliver the way you say you're going to deliver. So integrity, is really important. Professionalism obviously goes hand in hand, how you conduct yourself on a day-to-day basis in your business. Consistency, delivering over and over again at the highest level, whatever it is that you do. You could be a lawyer, you could be a writer, you could be a photographer, you can be a car mechanic, whatever it is, you got to be consistent in how your work is produced and performed and delivered. Of course, trust is a huge, huge thing in any business. Nobody wants to work with somebody that they don't trust, right? So in my business, very specific elements to how I built trust, how I earned trust over years and years and years, around some of the very difficult circumstances and very insulated environments. Professional sports is a really a very insulated, small kind of, in my case, boys club, that it's very hard to break into and then stay there. And there's a reason why I've stayed there for over 40 years. Branding is kind of a new buzzword. We didn't really call it branding back in the day when I was starting out. It was more like style, I guess. It was more like what we referred to branding, having your own personal style. And somebody looked at my work, what stood out than somebody else's work, or somebody else and somebody else. And I kind of tried to develop that in school so that I did stand out from the person next to me who was doing the same assignment, and they were trying to do the same with me. So branding, of course, now has taken on a whole other significance and a whole nother definition with everything with social media and, having your own quote unquote brand. Every athlete on the planet now has a brand, even college players, because of the whole NIL stuff. I also want to take people behind the curtain, as we say. My business is very much like I don't know, like a theatrical performance. People are seeing what's going on the field of play. They're seeing what's going on a football field, a basketball court. They're seeing, hockey arena, whatever it is, but they're not seeing what's going on behind the scenes. If you peel back the curtain, if you were able to go into the back of the house, or, backstage, so to speak. And the Lakers are a perfect example of that, because they're presented like a Broadway show. They're essentially, the court is a stage. It's lit that way. The game presentation has always been like that, going back to Showtime. And what I really want to show people, and I've really prided myself throughout my career, is bringing people behind the curtain, behind the scenes. My book that I did, Journey to the Ring, with Phil Jackson, about the 2009-10 championship season. I was embedded with the Lakers for 8 months, from training camp to when they won the championship in 2010. And there's so much going on behind the scenes that fans don't really have access to. They're not privy to. And I've earned the trust of the organization, of Phil, of course, of the players, and I took it upon myself to really kind of be that messenger of what's going on behind the curtain. We talked about style. Part of style is talent, and being able to develop your talent. As a creative person, bottom line is, I'm a creative person. I feel like I was born with some innate talent to do what I do. I wasn't meant to be a mechanical engineer or a cardiologist, or a lawyer. I think I was born, and my upbringing kind of helped it along, that I was taught very early to sort of honor my creativity. And when a camera was put in my hands by my dad at 14 years old, I really found the instrument to help me express my creativity. And I didn't know it then, but as that started to develop throughout high school and then into college, I really felt like I, found my calling. And then it was up to me to recognize that talent, but then also to help it grow and seek out whatever it took to help that grow to be a career. And then, Iain, you and I have talked about this a lot. I've talked about it on my podcast a lot, but at this point in my life, I like to think about the fact that I want to have a strong back nine, using a golf reference. My front nine was pretty good. It was all about like reaching that first mountain. I'm reading this great book called The Second Mountain right now. And, achieving that first mountain, kind of getting to the summit of a photography career that I worked so hard to build over the years. Very, very proud of it. Reputation, of course. And, maybe the first mountain could have been enough, but for me, it's not enough. I can't see myself, going off into the sunset and going fishing or doing whatever some retired people do, and God bless them, but that's not like my upbringing. So I feel like the back nine, coming out of the clubhouse for the back nine, is going to be really important for me to leave a mark, to feel like I really left something to the next generation and the next generation after that. That I'm very emotional about my craft and leaving it in good hands. And if I can impart something from my long history and my career and my reputation, then that makes that back nine even stronger for me. And I'm going to feel really good about that. So
Yeah.
that was a very long response, but it's long because you and I have spent endless hours drilling into all of these elements that are going to go into Beyond the Lens. And each one of them will be tackled on a weekly basis. And there'll be personal stories attached to them. And people will have the opportunity to actually ask questions and interact, which, is very unusual and very unique to what we're trying to do. And I'm excited about it because that really gets my juices flowing, and I can interact with people, and, be challenged and really kind of bring my long career, what I've learned to the people and to the forefront. That's that's just the greatest thing that I can give back, I think, in my career.
One question is that, so I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm a mentor to creative entrepreneurs in particular, but I'm not a photographer. I have an iPhone. I do enjoy taking photos with it, but I'm not really sure that counts in the overall scheme of things. What is it about Beyond the Lens that there is for me, rather than for your creative and your developing photographer? What is there for those people who photography is not a key part in their life?
Well, first of all, everybody's a photographer now because everybody has an incredible camera in their pocket, their glove box, their purse, backpack. No matter what, the phones today are light years better than the early digital cameras that came out, not even 15 years ago. And it doesn't matter if you're a grandma or you're a soccer mom or you're, a professional or a doctor or whatever, you want to take nice pictures at some point of whatever it is that's in front of you, your kids, your family, landscapes, cool cars, whatever it is. Okay. So in one sense, I think it's great for anybody to come to this workshop just to get some photography background sort of from the outside, because we're not talking about how to be or how to create pictures, the nuts and bolts of that. But I think the most important thing is that people are going to be learning from me, someone who's been in the profession for over 4 decades. And how did my career start? How did I, gain a reputation? What are those elements that went into all of that, running a business, dealing with people, whether it's internally or with vendors or with clients. And there's a lot of life lessons here. I referenced the Mamba mentality. I talk all the time to groups about how to bring the Mamba mentality into your life. You do not have to be a photographer to do that, or a professional basketball player. So I think that's going to be very interesting for people to hear from me, who worked with Kobe closely for 20 years. And then we did the book together, a true collaboration. What was that like? What did I learn? How did I bring that into my world? How am I trying to give it back and kind of get it across? And I think that anyone who's trying to pivot or thinking about maybe a retiree, it could be a young person who just can't decide on what career they want to go into, maybe some of the things I talk about are going to help you kind of right the ship or make a decision or find your passion, because you'll learn about how I found my passion and how I kept that fire lit for 40 years. So I think the workshop honestly is meant for everybody who is interested in learning how to get to the next level, either in what you're doing now or where you want to go next, right? If you're a creative person, you're not a creative person. I really think we're designing a workshop that works across the board, quite frankly, for everybody. And I hope people give us a shot, give us, an opportunity to show what we can do, what we can get across, because, you and I both have a lot of experience that we're bringing to the table here. And, I think it's good for anybody to join the workshop, and hopefully they will.
Yeah. And I think there's one thing to add to all of that. I think it's something that you felt when you were starting out, and people still feel today when they're starting out. I know 5 years ago when this took off for me as well.
Yeah.
This information is not publicly available.
Right.
It is not out there in general communication. It's not something that people talk about. Yes, you can get some advice on some key skills, some key techniques, some technology. In my case, it's business. things like cash flow or setting up a limited company or an LLC. There's lots of stuff on that. But the actual day-to-day experience of living life as somebody who is running their own business, an entrepreneur or a creative, that information still isn't readily available. So having that kind of access and insight, for me, that's one of the most interesting things about this, is that it's not public knowledge, the experience that you have. And it's great to see that heading back so that people starting out can learn from some of your mistakes. Don't want to say mistakes, but learning from some of the mistakes and lessons that you've learned along the way.
Sure. Mistakes are all part of the deal, man. If you don't fail, you don't learn. So we're going to be talking about that as well. We're going to bring great guests in to speak about certain tenets of the subject matter that we're covering. I'm super excited about that because there are people out there that I can't wait to talk to. Either I know them or I don't. But I think you're right, Ian. I think you hit the nail on the head. And this is not out there. This is not a program, a workshop you can readily find. We're developing something very unique, very special. You can pay a lot of money to go to a major art college or major university or what have you, and then you can sort of pick and choose things that work for you, don't work for you. We have sort of honed it down to the 12 pieces of subject matter, the 12 tenets that we really feel can help people on their path and on their journey and help them get to the next level. That's really what we're all about.
Okay, thank you. So just to draw things to a close, can you hit me with the key details that I need to know?
Yeah, for sure, man. We're planning to launch this publicly in June of 2023 with the live sessions. However, we are ramping up a great holiday special. One of the reasons we are releasing this podcast right now is to kind of enhance the holiday period with the possibility of buying an early bird entry into the beyondthelens.live. And we're going to show that here on the screen. We're going to have that on our social media, my Legends of Sports social media, my ADB Photo Inc. social media, on LinkedIn as well. You're going to be posting ways for people to sign up. So I encourage everyone to keep an eyeball out for our social media for the holiday special that we'll be running. And come June 2023, it's not that far away. This will be launched and we'll be on our way with our 12 sessions.
Thanks, Andy, for being such a great sport and for inviting me to host this. And to everybody listening, please do check out the show notes and the website for all the details that you need. Beyondthelens.live.
Fantastic, Ian. Thanks so much, man. First, for having the interest to partner with me on this. I'm super excited. Every time you and I speak, we're always uncovering new things to talk about, new ways to talk about it. So the workshop is really taking shape right now, and that's why I'm so excited to talk about it right now, and people can get in early. There's the sales pitch. So don't forget, folks, it's beyondthelens.live. And again, it's going to be on the screen. It's going to be on all our social media. So thanks again, Ian.
Yeah, fantastic. Great to see you, Andy. Take care.
Okay, bud.
Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Ian and learned a lot about our upcoming Beyond the Lens online workshop. All the information you need is on our website, www.beyondthelens.live. Check out our early bird holiday special, which is running now. We are offering the workshop at the lowest price it will ever be, so now is a good time to sign up or sign up somebody you think might really enjoy this workshop. I look forward to seeing all of you when we launch the full workshop next June. Remember, folks, you can find us on the iHeart app and online, as well as Apple and Spotify and your favorite podcast platform. Keep following us on Instagram at Legends of Sport, our Twitter at legends_of_sport, our website, legendsofsport.net, and our YouTube and TikTok channels, Legends of Sport. My photography can be found on Instagram and Twitter at ADB Photo Inc. And another reminder, please check out the website for Beyond the Lens at www.beyondthelens.live. Thanks, everyone, for continuing to support the Legends of Sport podcast. Remember to rate and review and tell all your friends. We'll be back next week with another great guest and episode. Until then, stay safe, stay well.